Hi everyone, I am so happy to be doing my first patron-only video. And first of all, I just really want to thank you for pledging me. It really means a lot to me, and I'm hoping to get some more vlog style videos out there. There are so many things that I want to do. I want to start doing weekly live streams with you, and I really appreciate your support and your encouragement. So I really had a difficult time figuring out what I was going to do for my first patron-only video, because I've covered a lot of territory on my channel already and on my blog. And then I realized that I always talk about how we use the library in our homeschool and how much I love the library and what a great resource it is. And so I thought what I would actually do today is give you a tutorial on how to use the library only in your homeschool. So what that basically means is homeschooling pretty much for free because you're using the library as your main resource. So now I will tell you that there is no such thing as homeschooling completely for free, because of course you will always need to buy paper and pencils and markers and crayons and art supplies and those sorts of things. But you can really keep the cost of curriculum down if you take advantage of your local library. And I think that a lot of us just have an image in our mind of the library, and you know, of course it's books, which obviously that's going to be the main thing that we use it for homeschooling too, but we don't take a look beyond that at all the other resources that we can use and to integrate that into your homeschool environment. So when I'm talking to you today, I just want you to keep in mind that I am not going to give you a step-by-step of what you need to do to homeschool with the library, because every homeschool is going to be different. What I am going to do is I am going to give you several different resources that you can find at the library, and I'm going to give you ideas on how you can use that specific resource in your homeschool. So let's just get started with this. Oh, and I do really want to give a disclaimer that as the parent, you really do need to preview some of the books all of the books that you get at the library, because some of them I have found the hard way by not previewing them myself were books that I would not have typically gotten for my children. So that is something that you really do want to keep in mind, is just preview any books. Also, another tip that I'm going to share with you about books, especially when it comes to history books, is I have noticed recently in the library, you know, they're getting new books all the time, which is nice. You know, they have beautiful pictures, and a lot of them have really quality text. But what I have noticed in a lot of the history trade books, now I'm not talking historical fiction, I am talking the trade books, the nonfiction history books, I have been noticing that there is a lot of revisionist history that's being included, and there's also even a lot of undisguised bias in some of the history books. So for that, I really recommend that, especially when it comes to history, but a lot of times even for any of the kinds of books that you get at the library, I tend to look for older books, like 1960s. I'm serious, because what I've noticed is that the older books tend to just be a higher quality, they're unbiased, and they are more of what we're looking for. You know, we want to know what actually happened in history, and I could do a whole video on that, because to be honest, we don't really know unless we're reading all primary documents. But that is just a tip that I have for you, is I've noticed it happening more and more with history trade books, that there's a lot of bias in them, and they don't disguise it at all. So try to stay in a little bit older books for especially the history section, or your history subject. So anyway, again, let's get started. So obviously, the first way that you can use the library in your homeschool is the books. And you know, a lot of people, when they picture the library, they remember going to the library as a school student. If you were assigned a report, you know, you go to the library, you get a few books, you take them home, you use them as resources, you write your report, and then you take them back again. Or, you know, of course, you will go to the library and get some books that you want to read on your own, you know, for your silent reading time. A lot of even school students have a certain number of books they have to read every year. And so, of course, those are things that you can do with your homeschool too. But they can be used for so much more. The library really is a treasure trove of information, and you honestly do not need any formal curriculum, no textbooks, if you are willing to go to the library and just see what they have, use those resources. Now, I know a lot of people tend to get a little worried about not using textbooks, especially if you're new to homeschooling, because it's something that's familiar. Most people went to school using textbooks, and I totally get that. And I've even had people say to me, how do you know that your kids are learning enough if you're not using textbooks with them? But if you think about it, those textbook authors, where are they getting their information from? They're getting their information from books like those you would find at the library. And unfortunately, what happens is they have to keep them very factual, because they have to keep a lot of information in a limited area. So if you ever tend to look at textbooks, while they look very thick, they're not covering a whole lot. Now, they might cover a vast subject area, but they're covering each subtopic very, very shallowly, because they just don't have the space in order to get into it more fully. And I actually had another video a while back where a textbook author was actually saying, hey, you know, I used to write history textbooks, and I'm sorry they were boring, but they made me cut out all the good stuff. And that's really what happens. Textbooks are just the facts, ma'am. But what the thing is that yes, they are using books like you would find at the library. So keep that in mind. So some of the things that you can use books for, and I'm going to tell you that the kind of books that you will find at the library are living books and trade books. A living book is typically either a fiction book or a biography or autobiography that is written about a subject or a person by an author who really, really has a passion for the subject and who really brings it to life in a way that makes it interesting and makes it easier for your children to remember what they're learning about. So that's what living books are. The other type of book that you'll find there are what's called trade books. And they are typically these nonfiction type books. I don't have another one here with me, but they're nonfiction books. And a lot of times they have pictures and some writing. But again, they just are so much more interesting. They have this color, and the short bits of information really help kids, again, to remember things better, because they're not being blasted with a ton of really boring information right away. So one way that you can actually use these books in your homeschool is by supplementing unit studies. And if you're not sure what a unit study is, I have done pretty many videos on unit studies, but what it basically is taking one topic and doing cross-curricular activities that you pull out of that one topic. It could be from a topic, or it could be from a book. So say, for example, if your children are learning about Scotland, they might learn about Edinburgh Castle. They might learn where Scotland is on the map. They will learn any famous scientists that lived in Scotland and what things they discovered. They could learn about traditional Irish, or not Irish, I'm talking about Scotland here. They could be talking about traditional Scottish dress, you know, with the kilts. They could learn about bagpipes. They could maybe listen to bagpipes being played, maybe even go to a concert, possibly even learn how to play the bagpipes. They could try Scottish food, haggis, you know. That's what a unit study is just taking one topic and delving really deeply into it. And as you're doing that, you will cover all of the required subjects without even really trying. Because even math, you know, if you are cooking Scottish food together, you are you're doing math as you're measuring, as you're calculating. If you have to double a recipe or maybe have it, you're also using math, for example, in geography. If you say, you know, hey, if you look on the legend on the map, can you tell me how many miles it is from where we live to where Scotland is? And so they're calculating that. They're measuring that little, you know, they have like, I don't know, a line covers like, say, 10 miles or whatever. I don't know how that is, but they will measure that out. And right there is math also. So there are different ways that you incorporate these things in, but that's what a unit study is. And so when you supplement with living books and trade books, and they actually not even supplementing, living books and trade books are often the spine of a unit study. I'm going to cough a minute, excuse me. Sorry, I'm just getting over being sick. So anyway, they're actually the spine of a unit study. And a lot of times when we are doing a unit study, our current read aloud, the read aloud that we are reading during that unit study will have something to do with the topic that we are learning about. So, you know, you've got the read aloud that serves as like a backbone for the topic, but then you will also have additional books that you want to get out of the library that cover different topics that have to do with your unit study subject. So you can use them that way, okay, for your unit studies. A lot of times, another reason that I get the books out for the unit studies is for children to just maybe read on their own sometimes. You could give them a related trade book, and you could have them read that in their silent reading time. You could have them use that for notebooking, something else that I've talked about many times before. So they are just really, really helpful when it comes to unit studies. And I think it would be very hard to do a unit study without these books. So another way that you can use books in your homeschool is through interest-led learning. And this can look many different ways. Sometimes with interest-led learning, your child can just choose a topic. You know, say they want to learn about the animals of Africa. And so you will take them to the library and you will show them, you know, the different areas where they want to find the proper books. And you can have them choose the books that they would like to use, that they would like to read and learn about this area. And, you know, again, interest-led learning oftentimes turns into a very own unit study, a self-directed unit study, because what ends up happening is as your children are learning about these African animals, they're also learning about African geography, a lot of times African culture, African history. So again, it's always seemed funny to me how schools break everything into subjects, like, you know, first period is English, then math, then social studies, then science, because life isn't like that. Everything is tied in together, and you can keep it cohesive by just learning about everything as a unit. Get it? Unit study, instead of just breaking it apart and really giving it a separateness that you just don't like. You can hear my cats scratching. We had to send them downstairs because they kept getting after my camera. But anyway, so that's another ways with interest-led learning. You could also even help your children, ask them what topic they would like to learn about, and then you together could go there and find books. You could maybe throw in some books that you want them to learn about that one topic, and then let them pick a few also. But that is another way that you can use them. Yeah, I have my little notes here because I didn't want to forget anything, because I knew this was going to be a long video, and I always get sidetracked like now. And so, yeah, this is helping me. So I said earlier how a lot of people are uncomfortable not using textbooks in their homeschool. And even if you understand the value of libraries, and even if you understand that textbook authors get their information from books just like what you would find in a library, they're still not comfortable with it. They just haven't been into the homeschool atmosphere long enough to really feel confidence. And you know what? That's okay, because I actually have a way that you can have a textbook to kind of help you feel better, but use the library to make that textbook way more interesting than what it normally would be. So as an example, I have here an America Land I Love textbook. Now, nothing against these textbooks, okay? I know that there are a lot of people who, now this is Abeka, so it's a good curriculum. And I know there are a lot of people who love Abeka, and that is great. But not every family is going to absolutely love what they find in the textbooks. Not so much the content, but just the way that it's written, the way that it's presented. So, and we're one of those families. My kids and I, it doesn't hold our interest. So what I did find out though is that the table of contents in these textbooks, they can be a great spine for you to find ways to cover a specific subject without making sure like they're going to miss something. And I'm just going to interject right there that there is no way you're ever going to cover all the information in every single subject. Schools don't do it, no matter how great the school is. Homeschoolers don't do it, no matter how great the homeschoolers are. So I just want you to keep that in mind. There are always going to be gaps in learning, and that's okay, because that's why as homeschoolers you want to teach your kids how to learn. You want to teach them how to find the information that they want to know about. But anyway, so what you do is you look at the table of content and you follow that as a guide for the little subtopics that you want to cover to make sure that you get the entire thing finished. So for example, we have the first English colonies. You could go to the library and you could get some books out on the colonies, especially at the very beginning when they first started being formed. Life in colonial America. And you know what? Life in colonial America, that would actually be an excellent time for you to find a historical fiction that would actually bring that to life. The Dear America series, I have to say, is really good. My kids have enjoyed the Dear America series. So anyway, you could find some books that have to do with life in colonial America. You could find trade books, or like I just mentioned, you can use a living book. Living books will often tie actual historical events into a book and then just, you know, make a story around it. So your kids are still learning history, but they're learning it with a storyline. And so you just keep going down from the Appalachians to the Rockies. So you could even get an atlas for that, and you could find out about the Appalachians and the Rockies, especially of course in that time. You want to remember what time period you're in. The Jacksonian era, a biography on Andrew Jackson. But again, I'm not going to go through the whole table of contents, but if you just look at the whole thing, what you can do is so sorry. Anyway, what you can do is actually, as the year goes on, you don't have to get all the books at once, maybe break it up into sections like they do, and just get some books for each section and just follow this kind of as an outline. But instead of reading the text that's in the book and doing the chapter reviews and the vocabulary and everything, you could just use the books that you get at the library. And so some things that you can do with that are even notebooking. You know, I'm big on notebooking, and to me the review questions and the vocabulary at the end of textbooks, they're pretty dull, and they're really meant to teach to the test. So a lot of times these review questions, they're just going to parrot what's going to be on the test. So, you know, your kids do the review, they memorize what's on the review, they take the test, and they forget about it later. You know, you ask them a month later what it was about, they have no idea. So what I actually like about doing notebooking instead of that with the library books that you're using is you let your child pick out a book that has to do with your subject area, and you have them notebook about it. And they could really notebook anything. They could read a section of it and you can ask them, can you write down a narration of what it was about? Or you could say, you know, can you write me a fictional story having to do that? Can you rewrite the chapter that you just read? Give me an alternate ending. And what I actually do with my kids is I don't even tell them what it is that I want them to do their notebooking page on. I let them have the choice of what they're going to do it about. So if they want to do a comic strip on the subject, they can do a comic strip. They just have to demonstrate that they have learned something that day from what they read in their book. And excuse me, oh, the sickness is like hanging on. Anyway, so they just get so much more in-depth learning, and the fact that they are able to choose what they're going to notebook about really helps them to remember it better. because it's something that they are taking ownership of. They're taking ownership of their learning, and they're not just relying on some pre-written questions that somebody made for them who doesn't even know who they are. So just keep that in mind. So moving on from using books in the library is audiobooks. Now, a lot of times there are kids who are better auditory learners than there are visual learners, and they really seem to enjoy listening to audiobooks. Audiobooks are really good for, excuse me, for homeschooling parents who really would rather not read aloud to their kids. They just, some homeschooling parents don't like doing it, and I know I always talk about how much I love reading aloud, but yeah, there are parents who just don't enjoy it all that much, and that's okay. Sometimes parents don't have the time to read aloud to their kids, so the audiobooks again can serve that purpose of being the read aloud for the children. They're still being read to. A lot of children also really benefit from audiobooks when they are first learning to read, when they will get the book and then get the accompanying audiobook, and they can follow along as it's being read. Now, some audiobooks don't come with the actual books themselves, but they will actually tell stories. So again, your auditory learner, they're still learning as they're hearing this information coming into them. Not everything has to come from actual visual books for everyone. You know, kids learn in all different ways, and you just really need to keep that in mind. Audiobooks are also really great for road trips. You know, if you're driving somewhere that's going to take a while and you want to keep your kids occupied, and if you want to get a little school in there, audiobooks are great for that too. So again, I just want to reiterate that the things that I'm telling you today are just ways to integrate library learning into your homeschool, so that I can help you to save money and learn how to homeschool as frugally as possible. So now moving on from audiobooks is DVDs. Now of course the DVDs would be found in the same section as the audiobooks. You know, it's the audio-visual section, and yes, there are, at least I know in our library, and I'm sure that most libraries have quite a selection of DVDs. And same thing goes as with books. You will often find actual historical fiction DVDs there. Like my kids love the Little House on the Prairie movie. So that was something that we got at the library that the kids watched over and over and over again as we were reading the book series together. So these DVDs that you get, they can actually supplement what you're learning. You know, you could take a break maybe once a week and pop in a DVD that has to do with a topic that you're learning about. Some kids even learn better from DVDs again than they do from books, and that's okay. You know, there is no rule that kids only can learn from books and that learning has to be boring. It's just not the case. Kids will learn far better if they're actually interested, and a lot of times these DVDs are something that is going to draw them in. So a lot of times you will find DVDs that are movies of books that you might be reading. So you could possibly read a book to your kids, and then you could watch the movie afterwards. And a lot of times that actually will spark a really spirited discussion about how closely the book stuck to the movie, or I should say the movie stuck to the book. That actually happened to us with The Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson and The Lightning Thief, because if you've ever read The Lightning Thief and seen the movie, you would see that they're not very close, like not at all. And I remember when we actually went to see The Lightning Thief in the movie theater, and when we left, my kids were like, "Mom, that wasn't like the book at all." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And so that happens, but again, it shows you they were paying attention when you were reading that read aloud together. So yeah, these DVDs are awesome. A lot of times you can find documentaries, even how-to DVDs. My kids have gotten DVDs that actually showed you how illustrators work on illustrating books. They had another DVD that showed how books get published. There was another DVD that actually showed them how to do origami. So what they would do is it would show them step by step how to fold the paper, and then whenever they kind of, you know, got behind, they would pause it and then they would do what they needed to do with the paper and just move on. And again, so that's something else that a lot of times if you're looking at instructions in a book, it doesn't quite click. When you see it on the screen in front of you and see someone actually doing it, sometimes, I know especially like with me and with my kids, we need to see something being done in order to really get how it's supposed to happen. So yeah, DVDs are an amazing resource for your homeschool. Don't overlook them just because, you know, they're just movies or they're just videos. No, they are just as important as those books on the shelves. So keep that in mind. Moving on from that, are taking advantage of the online lessons or classes that your library offers. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, like cyber schooling or anything like that, but I do know that in our library and in many libraries, probably most of them, they will offer you some sort of free foreign language program, which for the longest time is how my kids were learning their foreign language. Our library for a while had Mango languages, and that was what we used for Japanese, we used it for Swedish, we used it for German, and it was fantastic and it was free. So yes, go onto your library website and see what it is that they have to offer, because some of them even offer math courses. I'm not even kidding, just free math courses. Now, a lot of times it's not going to be for all different levels, but definitely check it out. Look and see what your library website is offering you, because a lot of times you'd be surprised what's there. Because again, a lot of times we'll go on the library website just to like renew our books or to see when our books are due, and we don't take time to actually browse and see everything that's there. Do that. It is so worth it. And actually, I forgot to mention this, and when I mentioned math, I forgot to mention this back at books. Math is one of those things that it can be hard to use just the library for math, especially if you want, you know, a specific math curriculum. So this is one of those areas where a lot of times you will have to put a little bit of money into some sort of math program, whether it's on the computer or, you know, a workbook or a textbook or whatever. But I will tell you that libraries do have math books. Now, they're not textbooks. A lot of times they're workbook style, or they're actually math living books. Yes, actual living books that will give you the information about how certain things are done in math, why they're done in math, and then they'll give you some questions at the end. Or sometimes they'll integrate math problems into an actual story, kind of like Life of Fred. And actually some libraries do offer Life of Fred math. I should just let you know that. Ours does not, but I know there are some that do. But anyway, bedtime math is another really good one. So yeah, there are math books that you can get at the library. And in our library, we can renew, well, we check them out for 3 weeks, and we can renew them twice. So we can end up, unless someone puts a book on hold, if we renew it twice, we can end up having the same book for 9 weeks, which is about 2 months. So what a lot of times we will do, if we really want to keep a book longer than those 9 weeks, is at our library, as long as you return it and then just let it recirculate for like a day or two, you can actually go back and check it out again. And I have totally done that. And then you can have it for another 9 weeks, because especially with math, because let's face it, there's not going to be many people who are going to the library specifically looking for math books. So I have never had it happen to me that one of the math books was actually on hold. You know, most people don't think of the library and math, and actually most people that go to the library go to school, and so they have math books. So again, it's not really an issue. Another way that you can work around that is, now you always want to check the front page and see if it's okay for things to be reproduced. But if it's okay with the publisher, you could always photocopy, you know, several weeks in advance, especially if it's a math workbook, for your kids to do after you take that book back, and then maybe you can take it, you know, out again a little bit later. So those are just some options to do with math, and I wanted to make sure that I covered that, and I had forgotten earlier. So now the next way that you can use your library is, my cats are like pushing at the door. I can hear the door moving. Anyway, They're bad though. They kept getting after the camera because the camera is sitting right by the air conditioner, and so they wanted to sit right at the air conditioner, and they kept bumping my tripod. So they got banished to the basement for now, and I'll let them out as soon as we're done. They don't like it down there that much. So anyway, another way is the children's programs that they offer at the library. You know, and there you go. If your kid, if people ask you, oh, how do your homeschooled kids get socialization? Oh, they get it at the library. And you know, that's really not, that's a pretty recent concept, that kids need to have socialization with other, with kids their same age. It's not something that was really thought about in times before. You know, kids just worked with their family. You know, it was family oriented, it was community oriented, and kids just, they were around people. It was about people. It wasn't about, oh, you have to be with kids your own age in order to be able to do things. No, it's just about people, you know. Anyway, that's again another video, but there's a lot of great programs that they offer at the library. Of course, there's story time, and that could give you a reprieve from read aloud that day. There are a lot of times science classes once a week, Lego building. There were even computer classes not too long ago, STEM classes, and our library even has dances once in a while for kids. The one year the kids and I went to, it was at Christmas time, it was called the Jingle Bell Ball. So, you know, and that's something fun for the kids. And again, you get that socialization in there that everybody asks you about, but then you also can get in the science and STEM and building with Legos, and a lot of times there's craft time and story time, and it's just endless. And so moving on, your teens can do the same thing. They have a lot of teen programs too. Our library has anime and manga clubs for teens. They have crocheting clubs. They have art clubs. I think that's all I wrote. Oh, and even gardening clubs for teens. So, you know, just again, just as with the website, see what your library has to offer for your children and for your teens. So again, and it can cover so many things, because a lot of times, especially, did I talk about book clubs already? Oh, that's next, so I'll just move on to that. So next is book clubs and discussions. And you know, that kind of goes right in with the children's programs and the teen programs. Book clubs, because a lot of times kids really enjoy getting a book from the library and knowing that they're reading it at the same time as a group of other kids, and then they like to go in there and talk about it with each other and see what other people are getting out of the book, how they like it, how they didn't like it, how they understood a certain thing, which character they love, which character they hate. You know, sometimes that's a little bit more fun than just talking about it with mom or with their siblings, because it's something different. But that is a great supplement for your homeschool, are the book clubs. And it's a great way for your kids to make friends too. Now again, this ties right in with all of the clubs and the book clubs and everything else. It's free classes. Now typically the free classes, at least in our library, I don't know how it is in all libraries, but in our library, a free class. And they are typically for adults. But my kids have already been to some of the adult classes, and what I did was I just asked the librarian, is it okay if my kid that is such and such an age will sit in for this class? And what they will typically tell you is that as long as your child is well behaved and is mature enough, you know, to sit through it with the adults, then they are welcome to it. And so, like in our library, they've already offered photography classes and book publishing classes, gardening classes, computer classes, and these are all things that a lot of times are things that you as a parent might not know how to teach your kids, but it might be something that they're interested in. Like if my kids would ask me to learn about gardening, okay, I started a vegetable garden this year, and if you would actually see it, you can see my corn because it's tall. Everything else is lost in the jungle of weeds. And that is because I never grew up learning how to garden. So when it came time to weed this garden, I didn't know what was weeds and what I planted. So it kind of became a free-for-all for the weeds back there. So my kids coming up to me and asking me, hey mom, can you teach me gardening this year? No, I am not the best. No, not the best choice at all. but if the library is offering free gardening classes, that's perfect. Same thing with photography. I'm not the best photographer. If you've seen my Instagram photos, you know they're very basic. I don't do staging. I don't do all the pretty stuff and the lighting and everything. I kind of just snap a picture of what's going on at the moment, post it, and I'm good with that. But, you know, I actually have several kids who are interested in photography. So photography lessons, free photography classes, you know, who would pass that up? And you know, it could just go on and on and on. Just take advantage of that to kind of fill in for the areas that you might be lacking in, because, you know, let's face it, none of us know everything. So yeah, take advantage of those free classes. So next, we're going to move into free internet and computer use. Now, I know that most people in this day and age have the internet. I mean, if you are watching me on YouTube, you know, you have the internet. If you're watching me right now here on Patreon, of course, you have the internet. But there are people who do get spotty internet, especially if they're kind of living out in the boondocks somewhere. So the library offers free internet, and they also offer free computer usage, usually for library patients, oh my gosh, like a doctor's office, library patrons. And a lot of times they'll give visitors passes too. But again, you just have to ask. All libraries are different. But that is something else you might want to take advantage of. And one nice thing about libraries is that when it comes to the children using libraries in the children's sections, they have filters, you know, so they can't get access to everything on the internet when they're in the children's section. There are filters that are protecting your kids from anything that they should not be seeing. Now, am I saying that you should put your kid on the computer and then just walk away and leave them there for 2 hours? No, I probably wouldn't go that far, but what I'm saying is that for the most part, those computers there are pretty safe for them. And so the last way for you to use the library for your homeschool is volunteer opportunities, especially for older kids. For teenagers, you know, you're making, I'm gonna cough again. Oh, excuse me. You know, you're making their transcripts, you're trying to get everything ready, especially if they want to go to college. And colleges, on those applications, they love to see volunteer work that your kids are doing. And what better place for a homeschooled kid to volunteer than at the library? They're always looking for teenagers to come in and help them, you know, sort the books, maybe straighten them up a little bit, help, you know, put them away when people bring them back. And so just have your teenager ask. It's usually teenagers. There's usually an age limit. I'm thinking, well, it's like 16 at our library, I think. But again, just ask at the front desk. A lot of times they'll give you an application. Now, one tip that I do have is you should definitely tell your teen to let them know that they can volunteer during school hours. Because what I actually found happened at our library is that they will save after school hours for public school kids who want to get their volunteer time in, because in our school district, the public school high schoolers, they have to have so many hours of volunteer time in. Or sometimes they also have graduation projects that they have to do, and a lot of times that includes volunteer work. So the library will hold those spots for public school kids because they have to do it, and they kind of look at homeschoolers as, oh, well, they're just homeschooled, you know, they don't have to do it. So have your teenager tell them, hey, you know what, I can come in anytime. You don't have to use me just after school hours. I can come in during the day, you know, whenever you need me, just give me a call. So that's another way for them to get their foot in the door. And you know what? They might even want to have a job at the library sooner or later. That would be like a dream job for me. Working in a library, oh my gosh, that would be wonderful. Anyway, I'm done dreaming now. So anyway, that is all that I have for you today on how to homeschool using just the library. If you have any questions or comments, you can definitely leave one right here on Patreon. I also wanted to let you know that if you ever have any suggestion for the patron-only videos, something that you really want me to cover, you can definitely comment here You can send me a message through Patreon. Just let me know, because I will be happy to at least try to do a video that you would really like me to do, one that you think would really help you, or one that you're really curious about. Just let me know, and I will try to accommodate you. So anyway, again, thank you so much for pledging me. I really, really appreciate your support, and I hope you have a great day.